Welcome to the deep dive. We explore sources to bring you the knowledge that matters.
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at a recording, actually. It gives a really interesting window into hypnosis training,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Advanced Conversational Hypnosis, or ACH. We hear from two students right after a session led by Virginie Eimer.
That's right, yeah. The source is this recording, Learn Conversational Hypnosis 1.mp4. And what's cool is we hear these students literally moments after a role play.
Oh,
Yeah, they were playing client and therapist, working on a real problem someone had, and the student who was the therapist actually thanked Virginie for stepping in to help get things resolved during the demo.
right. So it was quite involved.
Very.
So our mission then for this deep dive is to really unpack how these students felt about conversational hypnosis right then and there.
Yeah, what clicked for them.
Exactly. What was it about the experience that grabbed them? And maybe what makes ACH, potentially exciting for other hypnosis pros thinking about new skills?
Let's get into it. The first student's reaction, it was pretty immediate.
What does she say?
Well, straight off, she said she really liked it. Felt totally immersed, like really in it.
Okay, so positive start.
Very. But the really interesting bit is how she compared it to her other training, what she called classical hypnosis.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
She found ACH much more fluid, much simpler, much more. And then she paused. Much more powerful indeed.
Simpler and more powerful. That sounds
Yeah.
counterintuitive almost.
Mm.
What do you think she meant by simpler?
Well, listening to her, it feels like she meant less rigid, maybe, less constrained by specific steps, perhaps more adaptable, more flowing.
Okay, that makes sense. Less about fixed protocols, maybe more intuitive.
Could be. She definitely felt a real difference. She said she was quite convinced this type of hypnosis is quite powerful and relevant too.
So doing the role play, even with Virginie helping out, that really cemented it for her.
Seems like it. Yeah. She even mentioned she'd seen Virginie do a demonstration before with someone else, and she'd been keen to experience it herself.
And what was her impression of that demo?
She called it really great and
Mhm.
completely different. And again, that word powerful came up much more powerful than traditional hypnosis.
Wow. So it really shifted her perspective on what hypnosis could be, moving beyond maybe the more directive stuff she'd learned.
That's the feeling I get, yeah. It wasn't just about the technique either.
Oh.
She sounded genuinely grateful, said thank you very much. And she talked about being glad she'd enrolled.
Right.
She admitted having those doubts we all have sometimes.
Yeah.
Is this course any good? Is it just hype? Am I throwing money away? That kind of thing.
We've all been there.
Absolutely. So her relief and just how pleased she sounded, it really came through. That initial doubt followed by this like aha moment.
Yeah, you can really hear that shift. She now sees this real potential in ACH.
Definitely. Now, Virginie Eimer herself chimed in on why it might feel so powerful.
Okay, what's the trainer's take?
Well, she agreed with the student, basically.
Yeah.
Linked ACH's power to accessing deeper awareness. She mentioned the unconscious or superconscious, kind of like other holistic methods that tap into our inner stuff.
Right, inner resources.
Exactly. And she drew this contrast with what she termed traditional hypnosis.
How so?
In those approaches, she said, the therapist is often more, well, central. They provide the stories, the techniques, the metaphors.
Scripts, the protocols.
Right, all that. But with ACH, the power source is different.
It's the client.
Yes. It's about helping the client access their own resources to make the change. Virginie had this great line, something like, we always get more satisfaction finding answers ourselves than when someone just tells us.
Oh, that's spot on. Yeah.
It speaks to that feeling of agency, doesn't it? And probably leads to change that really sticks. If you figure it out yourself, it means more. It integrates better.
Absolutely. It's your breakthrough, not just something you were told. And Virginie also mentioned something about knots, underlying issues.
Yeah, nudes knots. She talked about how ACH aims to get at those deeper patterns or beliefs, the things that keep problems coming back.
So not just symptom relief.
Exactly. Not just dealing with the surface issue presented in, say, a standard intake or anamnesis. It's about finding and untangling those root causes.
Like core beliefs or old conflicts.
Things like that, yeah. Ingrained fears, limiting ideas about yourself. The goal is to resolve those so the change is more fundamental, more lasting. Less chance of relapse.
Okay, that sounds much more thorough. Really get into the heart of it.
That's the idea.
So let's switch to the second student. Corrine, what was her take? Does she echo the first one?
Pretty much, yeah. Started off the same way. I really liked it. A clear thumbs up.
Okay.
But what stood out with Corrine was her comparison to an earlier intro session she'd done.
Ah,
She said this role play was way more meaningful because now she had the theory from the actual training. It gave her reference points, she said, made the whole thing click better.
right. The theory provided the framework to understand the practice.
Exactly. And like the first student, she also really valued Virginie jumping in.
How does she describe that?
Corrine felt like she'd managed to remove a layer during her part of the role play, but then she got a bit stuck, felt blocked, like she was missing the next connection.
Okay, so she recognized she needed help.
Yeah, and she appreciated Virginie's input. She said something like, every time you took over, well, you hit the mark. Just nailed it.
Wow, high praise. Shows the effectiveness of the guidance within that ACH model, even briefly.
Definitely. And Corrine also explained why she stepped back when she did.
Why was that?
The client in the role play, she, was apparently really deep in an emotional trance, as Corrine put it.
Okay.
And Corrine just felt instinctively that she shouldn't interrupt that. She wanted the client to fully have that experience without being disturbed.
That shows great sensitivity, actually, tuning into the client's process.
It really does. Respecting that space. And then, just like the first student, Corrine confirmed the powerful indeed. Simple as that.
So the experience reinforced her belief in it.
Totally. She said she was already sold on the tool, but this just confirmed it, made her feel comforted in the choice. Like, yeah, it's super really lucky to have this tool.
That hands-on part, even guided, really seemed to seal the deal for both of them.
It seems so. It wasn't just theory anymore. It was lived experience.
So what did Virginie think of how they did in the role play?
Oh, she was really positive, praised Corrine's work, and completely understood why she'd stepped back when she did.
Good.
But crucially, she brought it back to that core ACH principle again. She said, neither you nor I created the change. It was her, meaning the client.
Right. Reinforcing that the client is the engine of change. The therapist is the facilitator, the guide, maybe.
Precisely. Even with interventions, the power comes from the client. Virginie also noted that the client stayed in trance even when she stepped in, which she felt showed how deep the process could go.
That's impressive.
Yeah. She wrapped up with a really encouraging, great job to both of you. Well done.
Nice. So, okay, wrapping up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, clearly, both students came away really positive about advanced conversational hypnosis. They were struck by how simple it felt in practice, how fluid, and definitely how powerful it seemed compared to other hypnosis they knew.
And that core theme running through it all is the client's own resources driving the bus, essentially.
Exactly. The change comes from within the client, facilitated by the therapist.
Yeah.
It's not imposed from the outside. That seemed key for both the students and Virginie.
And you can really hear their confidence boost, can't you? Their excitement about actually using ACH. It feels like this training, especially that role play, wasn't just about learning techniques.
No, it seemed to deepen their whole understanding of how change can happen. That client empowerment piece seems huge.
Absolutely. Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, think about that potential. Approaches that really aim to unlock and empower the client's own inner capabilities. How does that idea, change from within, resonate with you?
How might insights from something like ACH fit with your own experiences, or maybe what you hope to achieve, whether in hypnosis or any related field? What doors might open when you truly center the client's own journey? Something to mull over.